Joining us now is California Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. Congresswoman, can you tell us, what do you make of Kamala Harris's message in this moment, especially when you yourself have been so actively opposed to partisan gerrymandering for the last 20 years?
Yes, California delegation, which I chair, favors independent redistricting. But when Trump weighed in, he knows he's going to lose the midterms unless he rigs the election to get these Republican states to do his bidding and redistrict. We decided we just couldn't be punching bags. We had to act. And so we put together a map that will allow us to potentially swing 5 Republican seats to Democratic seats, so that what Texas is doing will not change the outlook. And we're working with our colleagues in other delegations in other states so that we have a fighting chance to flip the House in next year's midterm elections. And I'll tell you what, it was great listening to President Obama. I think I was the first California Democratic House member to endorse him when he first ran. It was inspiring and fun to listen to him. I serve with Mikey. She's terrific. But people are eager to stand up for themselves and put a stop to the kind of nonsense that's coming from the White House. They're trying to intimidate people. Well, we're not intimidated. We're going to stand up for ourselves, and we're going to make it possible to take the House, take the power away from the Republicans in the House who will not stand up to Trump, and start turning this country in a different direction.
Congresswoman, you talked about wanting to counter what is happening in Texas. And in fact, you said in a recent interview, our first hope was that if we could show them that we would turn 5 Republican seats Democratic in California, maybe Texas would stop, because we actually do favor independent redistricting. We have that here in California, but they didn't stop. They doubled down. My question for you is, how do we keep this from escalating? Right? I understand the idea of not wanting this unilateral or one-sided disarmament. But the question is, when does it stop, right? Texas redistricts, California redistricts, maybe we see it in Illinois, Maryland, lots of other states.
Virginia.
Yes, exactly. So how do we keep it from basically taking over the whole country, where, as you have pointed out in the past, we will then have maps where it is not the voters choosing their politicians, it's the politicians choosing the voters, and everything is basically this arms race to just redistrict to favor the party in power?
Well, California's Prop 50 reverts back to the commission after the next census. This is an emergency action. But as you mentioned at the outset, I am the author of the bill for mandatory independent redistricting in every state. When the House was controlled by Democrats, we passed that, and the Republicans killed it with filibuster in the Senate. So we've reintroduced that bill. Once we regain the authority, we're in the minority right now. We can't even bring up a bill for a vote. That's what we should end up with. But for now, we need to be able to win next year, and we're not going to be able to do that if we allow President Trump to rig the entire thing.
Miles Taylor and Norm Eisen are back with us. Let's jump right into it. I want to get to this soundbite of Congressman Comer defending the Trump family crypto windfall this week. And let's get everyone's reaction on the other side.
The difference between the way the Trump family is operating and the Biden family is they're admitting they're doing this. The president campaigned as a business guy. So as long as you disclose your income and disclose the sources, I think that's acceptable.
This is the head of the oversight committee.
That's the new rule of American criminal law.
As long as you disclose it.
I'm robbing this bank. Please take the money.
Right. And let's also just contextualize this a little bit, which is that the Trump organization's income has soared 17-fold to $864 million from $51 million a year earlier in the course of his presidency. Miles, are the American people okay with what James Comer's okay with?
I don't see how they could possibly be. And
Not
Norm
when they
said
can't
it.
afford food.
That's we are not feeding American children, yet the Trump administration, the Trump family, is grifting off the presidency and making billions of dollars. I mean, as Norm just hinted at, it's as if to say, as long as you admit that you're committing a crime, it's okay. But we've seen this. We've forecasted it for years with Donald Trump. The man who said I could shoot someone on 5th Street and get away with it has now institutionalized that as the policy inside the presidency. And they're doing it in wide open. And look, I think that this is still not even a big enough news story, is we have very obvious connective tissue between the president's foreign policy decisions, the White House regulatory decisions, and his personal business interests. This is why this is in the emoluments clause in the United States Constitution. This is why this was called out by the founders, because that type of corruption corrupts the entire executive system of the federal government.
Norm, I have asked a couple people this weekend and last weekend because I want an answer, and I'm going to ask you now. When you think about what happens to the DOJ after Trump, what are the kind of changes that need to be made? What are the kind of laws that Congress need to pass a la Watergate to say, okay, we're not doing that again? What are those specific laws that you foresee that need to be changed?
Well, it needs to start with the Supreme Court, because the truth is that our courts have performed very well. Judges of both political parties have pushed back on Donald Trump. We need to have Supreme Court reform, for example, term limits, so there's a rotation of Supreme Court justices, perhaps more Supreme Court justices. That's been the place where the rule of law system has gone afoul. Second, we need to have enforcement on presidents profiting from the presidency where, as Miles says, there's an apparent connection with their official decisions.
Why didn't Democrats do that last time around? This is nothing new. Trump did this for 4 years.
Nobody.
2016 to 2020.
You're right. And one of the
lack of imagination.
One of the damning parts of that Carol Leonnig piece in the New York Times and Carol's new book is the failure under Biden to imagine the degree of danger and to move the criminal investigations much more briskly.
But what about Congress?
Look at however you may want to criticize the Democratic minority in Congress, look at the degree of corruption of Trump's enablers like James Comer. You can almost see on his face, that was like a hostage video, Jackie.
You look like a happy hostage, honey.
The Republican Party has been taken hostage by this corruption. And then, Eugene, one final answer to your question, and I am hopeful. We need to reform the pardon laws. Donald Trump just gave a pardon to Changpeng Zhao, the head of Binance, that has helped his company make billions. That kind of corrupt connection is wrong.
It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be so much more of that.
The conversation here exposes a deep and dangerous pattern of behavior from Donald Trump and his allies, one that blends political manipulation, corruption, and disregard for democratic norms into a single, self-serving agenda. The redistricting debate led by Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren highlights how Trump's strategy to hold on to power revolves around reshaping the system itself to guarantee outcomes in his favor. You think democracy itself can't be overturned from the inside with a strongman that can inject his people into every part of the government and then destroy it from the inside? It's that kind of vulnerable. Trump's interference in state-level redistricting efforts, especially in Republican-controlled areas, shows an effort to preemptively tilt the playing field for the midterms. If they can gerrymander all of the counties in their favor, that's democracy, but it doesn't represent the people. And that can be before even a single ballot is cast, before they can even manipulate the messaging and manipulate anything else they want. This action damages democracy by sabotaging representative government at its most basic level. Lofgren's remarks reveal that Democrats like her are being forced into defensive maneuvers, not because they reject fair play, and the Republicans never even attempt fair play, but it's because Trump's party refuses to operate under any kind of fair conditions. California has historically supported independent redistricting, ensuring that maps reflect populations and the way people move around, and not purposely racially dividing them. It ensures that communities, instead of party interests, are respected. When Trump began influencing Republican states to completely gerrymander everything aggressively, Lofgren and her colleagues realized that inaction would lead to completely surrendering the House to manipulated maps where they just draw whatever lines they want to make sure that Republicans stay in power. They acted to prevent Trump from dismantling the system entirely. It's a sobering reality how one man's obsession with control has triggered a national arms race in political mapmaking. Now everything is open to being stuffed. Everything is open to being manipulated. The system itself will just break down under all of this political maneuvering. Trump's behavior connects directly to broader corruption in general. As the second half of this discussion shows, his approach to power remains transactional. Profit first, accountability never. The Trump Organization's income soaring from $51 million to $864 million during his presidency, and that's excluding the billions of dollars he and his wife have gotten through crypto stuff and all of his other scams and all of his other deals with international companies and other countries, getting $400 million planes for his library. It just reflects how the public office serves him and how private gain for him has just completely overtaken any sense of responsibility of the presidency. When Republican lawmakers like James Comer defend this and claim that simply disclosing profits makes everything acceptable in this case, they're erasing ethical standards together. They're destroying the concept of bribery and about injustice and about just taking and not representing the American people. This type of justification normalizes corruption and teaches Americans that power, once attained, comes with immunity and impunity to take as much as you want and to accept bribes and to reward your allies and to reward people who are loyal to you and not the Constitution, right? So the same disregard for integrity extends to Trump's manipulation of institutions that are meant to check him. His allies in Congress and on the Supreme Court have acted as shields for him and protected him from the law rather than as safeguards to protect the Constitution from someone who tried to destroy it. Calls for reform, from term limits on justices to stricter enforcement of emoluments laws, which, if we actually held Trump accountable for the crimes he's committed, he'd have many lifetimes in jail, but we're just not enforcing the law. All of this stems from this crisis of the lack of accountability in our offices. Trump's influence has revealed how fragile America's systems of balance and democracy and restraint on power truly are. Ultimately, the redistricting battle and the financial scandals reveal a deeper corrosion of democratic norms. Trump has turned governing into a zero-sum game, where victory justifies any means and self-enrichment becomes entitlement. The refusal of his allies to confront this corruption and the willingness of his party to adapt to it and promote it shows how far the Republican establishment has fallen under his control. If this erosion continues unchecked, it'll distort elections and redefine what Americans consider legitimate leadership. The danger lies in how this behavior has become routine now. It's accepted, and it's replicated across every branch of government.